Her father's name is no longer in her name. The man once twice crowned the sexiest man alive is now quietly avoided by his own children. No more shared photos. No public mentions. His name, Pitt, has vanished from signatures, from appearances, from acknowledgments. What happened to Brad Pitt, the man who once had it all? The answer isn't as simple as divorce. This is the quiet tragedy of a Hollywood father. Famous, alone, and seemingly forgotten by his own family. In June of this year, a Broadway playbill caught public attention. Not because of the title, not because of the cast, but because of a small credit at the bottom corner. Production assistant, Vivienne Jolie, not Vivienne Jolie-Pitt. One name missing, the name of her biological father, spoke louder to the public than any PR campaign ever could. Brad Pitt, long seen as an icon of American cinema, is no longer acknowledged in his own daughter's name. This didn't happen suddenly. It's the result of a quiet, long-simmering fracture, nearly a decade in the making, since the so-called divorce of the century between him and Angelina Jolie. A divorce that wasn't just the end of a marriage, but the beginning of a slow and ruthless unraveling of the family itself. Vivienne wasn't the first to drop her father's last name. Zahara, at a university event, introduced herself as Zahara Marley Jolie. Shiloh, once a symbol of the couple's golden era, now goes by She Jolie. Maddox, the eldest, once close to Brad, no longer carries the Pitt surname in any official documents. Brad's silence only makes this more haunting. He didn't object, he didn't explain, and most tellingly, he hasn't been seen publicly with his children since 2016. What happened between the world's most beloved man and his own children? Perhaps the answer isn't in any one event, but in time. Over the last 8 years, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have been locked in an endless legal war. Custody battles, property disputes, a lawsuit over their winery, Chateau Miraval. And throughout it all, the children have been caught in the middle. A 2022 People report quoted a source close to the actor. There were long stretches when Brad couldn't see the kids. He tried, but it was really tough. And it wasn't just the legal system. It was the emotional weight. The love of a Hollywood father wasn't enough to overcome the emotional scars growing in his children. On Father's Day 2020, Pax Thien, Brad's adopted son from Vietnam, posted on Instagram calling him a world-class asshole and the man who turned our family's life into hell. Those words cut deep. They shattered the image of Brad as the ideal father. Because once respect is gone, fatherhood can't survive on titles alone. But perhaps the most painful part of it all is Brad Pitt's own silence. No rebuttals, no press interviews, no denials. He continues to live, to act, to love. Currently in a relationship with jewelry executive Inés de Ramón, but he is no longer the father in the spotlight. Maybe he understands. In emotional warfare, words often mean nothing. The Chateau Miraval lawsuit over the winery that once symbolized Jolie and Pitt's love has now become a brutal battleground. According to Radar Online, Angelina Jolie is, quote, exhausted, drained, emotionally worn out by the ordeal. One source said, she feels like she's being consumed. Time, energy, spirit. And what's more alarming, the kids see it. They're watching it all. And it's pushing them further away from Brad. On Brad's side, a source says he views Chateau Miraval as a symbol of legacy, something deeply personal that he won't give up without a fight. One side fights for pride. One side fights for emotional closure, but the ones truly hurt are their children. Maybe to Brad, this is all temporary. Maybe he hopes the kids will understand him when they're older. But time doesn't always wait. When each child chooses to erase his name from theirs, when family photos disappear, when red carpet appearances show him alone, it's no longer a gap. It's a separation made real. Brad Pitt once stood at the summit of Hollywood, twice named the sexiest man alive. A symbol of charm, masculinity, and above all, a man who seemed to have it all. Career, love, family. But it was that very everything that began to crumble from the inside. The bitter truth isn't in public criticism. It's in the silence, when no one says his name anymore. He's no longer mentioned at graduations, no longer present at school events, no longer credited on playbills. A father losing his children not through tragedy, but through time, conflict, and the very real choices of those children. And those choices, however painful, reflect something deeper. Brad Pitt's story isn't about blaming him or Angelina Jolie. It's the modern tragedy of a famous family, where affection has been stretched thin by power, fame, and unresolved emotional damage. And this didn't happen because they were celebrities, but because they are human, flawed, wounded, and sometimes too broken to reach out. Today, Brad Pitt still appears in public with his calm demeanor, but that gaze, it's emptier than before. Not because he lacks success, but perhaps because he's coming to terms with the reality every man fears, becoming a stranger within his own family. Every recent photo shows Brad Pitt looking happy. He's smiling. He's holding hands with his new girlfriend, Ines de Ramon, a young, beautiful, gentle woman, far removed from the glamorous chaos of Hollywood. They vacation together, appear at events together. The media calls this Brad's first serious relationship since his historic divorce from Angelina Jolie. From the outside, it seems everything is finally back on track. A new life, a new love, a new chapter. But then, in small, fleeting moments, you catch a glimpse of something else. His eyes seem distant, as if they're carrying a weight he doesn't speak of. The most recent clue? The birthday of his twins, Vivienne and Knox. A deeply personal moment. And yet, once again, only Angelina was seen with the children. Just her and them. No sign of Brad, no photos, no mentions. Not even a subtle hint that he was nearby. And no one really asked why, because by now the world has grown used to it. Used to Brad Pitt, once the gold standard of celebrity fatherhood, slowly fading from his children's lives. And not just his adopted children, all of them. So what happened? What created this chasm between Brad Pitt and his own kids? How does a biological father, once proudly present at every milestone, become a stranger on birthdays? Is it his fault? Did Brad Pitt make mistakes that led to this slow unraveling of family ties? Or is this a far more complex tragedy, one that speaks to the pressures of fame, the damage of prolonged legal warfare, and the silence of emotional wounds left untreated? Looking back to the 2016 divorce, it's hard to argue that this wasn't the beginning of the end. The split between Brad and Angelina wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the collapse of a global family brand. 6 children, Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, Vivienne, and Knox, once symbolized love beyond borders, cultures, and even biology. But post-divorce, everything changed. Years of custody battles, property disputes, lawsuits, public accusations, and in the middle of it all, the children stood, pulled in opposite directions. And the result? A silent retreat. One by one, the children have removed Pitt from their public identities. Maddox no longer uses his father's last name. Pax famously posted on Instagram calling Brad a world-class asshole and someone who made life hell. Shiloh, once hailed as the perfect blend of Jolie and Pitt, now goes by She Jolie. Zahara, once tightly embraced by Brad on red carpets, now identifies as Zahara Jolie. And the latest, Vivienne, Brad's biological daughter, listed as Vivienne Jolie in a Broadway production she worked on with her mother. None of the children, not one, use Pitt anymore. That's not coincidence. That's a statement. And when all your children are making the same statement, the question must be asked, what did Brad Pitt do? Or perhaps more hauntingly, what did he not do? Some sources say Brad tried, that he was restricted, that for long stretches of time he was denied access to his kids, even phone calls. And that may be true. It's heartbreaking, but others say he didn't try hard enough, that he withdrew, that he avoided conflict by choosing silence, by choosing not to show up, by choosing a simpler life. One that didn't revolve around children who were growing up and growing away. So what is the truth? Perhaps no one knows except those involved. But one truth is clear. The gap between Brad and his children is real, and it's growing. And the public sees no signs that he's closing it.